It's no secret. You can check it out. Go back on YouTube, Thomas Take Sports Podcast. It's no secret that I'm not the biggest Tyrod Taylor supporter. We'll put that out there. Get that started right now. As I introduce myself, I'm Ryan Thomas. This is the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. Big news dropped this afternoon as it was announced that Tyrod Taylor, the Bills starting quarterback of last year and the season before that, the Bills started for the last 2 seasons, will be back to start for the Buffalo Bills in 2017 on a restructured contract. The details of that structured contract, I don't have the full details just yet. I've heard rumblings that it's for $9 to $10 million for 2017. I haven't heard anything beyond that. As soon as I do, you guys know that I will post it on the Thomas Take Sports Podcast Facebook page, and I will talk about it live on the air when I feel it's necessary. If you have not checked out the first part, second part, third part of today's show, I talked about the 32 pick segment, picks 11 to 13. Starts with the Saints, goes to the Browns, then goes to the Cardinals. So we're 13 picks down. We got 14 to 32 left. And, I'll definitely finish that up, as the time goes on. So Tyrod is here to stay. What are my thoughts? My thoughts are this. The quarterback options surrounding the NFL right now, surrounding the Buffalo Bills right now, on the list of options for the Bills, besides Tyrod Taylor, were very unrealistic. You have Tony Romo not coming here. He's not coming here. You have Jay Cutler. I would not be happy if they brought in Jay Cutler. I'd rather have Tyrod Taylor, to be honest with you. You have the options in the draft. I can't say that there's one guy in this year's draft that I definitely put a stamp on as a first-round draft pick. There isn't. There's guys that are, connected to the first round on mock drafts. But if I'm a GM, and I've watched all these quarterbacks the last few years that they've been in college, there's not a guy right now that I can stamp and say he's a week one guy. My definition of a first-round quarterback is a guy that can come in week one, day one, so to speak, and start and play at a high level. An Andrew Luck, a John Elway, guys like that, a Peyton Manning. Those are the guys that are starting quarterbacks for me. Those are the guys that are first-round pick quarterbacks. Even in the case of Green Bay drafting Aaron Rodgers, he was a first-round quarterback. Heck, he was supposed to be a top 5 pick, maybe even the first overall pick that year. But he went to Green Bay and sat behind Brett Favre and learned, and it probably made him an even better player than what he was supposed to be. So the options weren't really there for Buffalo to say, we're going to go in this direction. The only option that I was keen on was trading for a guy like Trevor Siemian. He's very cheap. The Bills' salary cap situation is not one to scoff at. It's not a good situation. Would have been a heavy decrease in pay, from paying for Tyrod compared to paying for Siemian. Siemian would have been on the books for $680,000 and $780,000 around there in 2018 as well. He would have been on the books for 2 years under roster control at a real low price, and he has intangibles as a quarterback that I like in terms of his throwing accuracy, in terms of his throwing strength, his arm strength. 2 things that I've highly questioned with Tyrod Taylor. The one thing Trevor Siemian doesn't have is mobility. The one thing Tyrod Taylor does have is mobility. So there is pieces to Tyrod's game that are very rare in a quarterback, and that is what Buffalo is paying for. The ability for him to be able to escape the pocket, extend plays, get rushing yards, create, time in the pocket. And that is something that they essentially could need, given the fact that their offensive line pass blocking is not as good as it is run blocking. So I don't know why that is. I mean, it is two completely different blocking styles. The run blocking is a lot different from pass blocking, certainly, but it is a steep drop-off. And I wouldn't say it's the steepest, but I would say it's steep. So, continuity as well, a new head coach, a new quarterback, virtually a lot of new wide receivers, and I'll get to that a little bit later, but I think Sean McDermott wanted the quarterback question gone, out of the way, out of the minds of the fans, out of his mind, out of Doug Whaley's mind. It was a lot easier to say yes than to say no, and they aren't saying yes to the current contract, the structured contract that was given to Tyrod last year. They're restructuring it, so it was a win-win. Keeping him is not the end of the world. I'm not angry that they're keeping him. I was prepared for the fact that they would keep him. I do have real question marks associated with Tyrod in terms of his arm strength and his arm accuracy. There were a lot of games last year where he missed throw the ball a lot. He held the ball too long, let plays die down rapidly, extended plays to the point where nothing was there and settled for minimal rushing yards. He should extend plays to throw the ball. That's what the quarterback is supposed to do. If he wants to extend a play to run, decide to run. Don't wait too long, and that running lane closes, and then you decide to throw the ball, and it is either incomplete or it's a forced turnover, or he decides to run the ball when it's too late and the running lane is already gone. So that is my criticism of Tyrod Taylor. Nothing more, nothing less. Great guy that wanted to be in Buffalo. I appreciate him for that. I can't say that about guys like Stephon Gilmore who want to just leave for the money. I understand that. He's a free agent. He wants to make do. But, Buffalo was the team that drafted him and gave him an opportunity as a top 10 pick. And he wants to leave. So he's probably going to leave. So Buffalo in a decent position now at quarterback. Moving forward, they have that question mark out of the way. That was a huge spotlight hanging over the team that they didn't really want or need. It was a huge cloud, I should say, hanging over the franchise that they didn't necessarily want or need. My question is, now that they know that Tyrod will be back, who is the backup to Tyrod? That is the bigger question to me. I think if Tyrod is going to stay, they need a much better backup than who is currently on their roster. Cardale Jones is way too raw. He's not going to cut it. E.J. Manuel, I don't know what they're going to do with E.J. If I were the Bills, I would keep him, to be honest. He's got a lot of tools, 6'5", 240, 25, 26 years old. There's not that many quarterbacks on the market like E.J. Manuel that have those things going for him that'll be as cheap as E.J. Manuel would be, as cheap as E.J. Manuel would ask for to stay. The price in which he would ask for would not be too much. Another guy that I like is Nick Foles. It's a guy that, for the life of me, I don't understand why he was somewhat blacklisted by teams in the National Football League, even as a backup. I mean, Alex Smith went down. He came in for a short time. He looked pretty good. He had a great season under Chip Kelly as a starter, 27 touchdowns, 2 picks. Gets traded to the hapless Rams, and it just ruined his career, sending him to a team that had virtually nothing to gain on it for his career, nothing to highlight his ability whatsoever, a coach that should not have been a head coach for the last 5-6 years that he was, for the last 5 to 6 years that he was a head coach, and it ruined his career, him going from the Eagles to the Rams, another move that Chip Kelly should not have made, and that was that. Now he's a free agent. I think he's one of the more intriguing free agent quarterback options. He's a guy that could easily come in the event of an injury to Tyrod and start a series of games, 3-4 games for the Bills, and we would see production. A guy that could put up 250 yards, 2 touchdowns per start. I really believe that in Nick Foles. Nick Foles is a very accurate quarterback that has a very good arm. I don't know what the cost would be to bring in a quarterback like Nick Foles as a backup. The going rate fluctuates by the minute, with the salary cap rising in the National Football League, you'll expect to see more teams pay more money for players at the pedigree in which they had never been paid that much money before. So this is a very interesting story, heading into tomorrow, the 4 o'clock day, and it's the opening day of free agency. Matt Schaub is off the market. Brian Hoyer is off the market. Schaub went back to the Falcons. Hoyer went to the 49ers. So the 49ers can actually say that they have a quarterback on their roster. That is Brian Hoyer. And, you don't want to see those veteran options get gobbled up that quickly. But Schaub went on a 2-year, $9 million deal. That's a lot of money for a backup. And, what will that dictate for Foles? I don't know. Foles, I'd say, would demand more money than Schaub, being that Foles is a lot younger and is more, I wouldn't say more starting experience, but he has more ability to start long-term for a franchise, if need be, than Schaub. So the demand could be higher. Do I think this is a bad move? No. They got Tyrod to agree to the fact to take a pay cut, and Tyrod knew damn well that he was not worth the money that was offered. And I even think the Bills knew that he wasn't worth the money that they offered when they offered it. I was a harsh critic of this contract that was originally offered to Tyrod, the structured deal with the options sprinkled out over the series of 5 years. Thought it was a terrible contract written by the Bills. For the lack of, the reasons, for the lack of a better term, I understand to a degree why they did it, but really they should have just given him a 1-year extension rather than a long-term deal that was restructured where Tyrod didn't really prove to be a long-term answer at that point. So why give a guy a long-term contract when he hadn't necessarily proven that he was a long-term answer? So a year goes by, it's an ultimate prove-it deal, and the players around him get hurt. Sammy Watkins can't stay healthy. Robert Woods goes down. LaShawn McCoy was hurt, banged up. So Tyrod had to prove it on his own, and he couldn't do it. So time to take a pay cut, buddy. Prove it. We want you here as an organization. They affirmed that to him. They reaffirmed that to him. Rick Dennison has ringing endorsements for the guy. McDermott has ringing endorsements for Tyrod. And Dennison thinks that he can fit the offense in which he ran at Baltimore with him there as the quarterback's coach. So that's good. I like it when coaches have a common ground with players based on their past. And Dennison was a former quarterback's coach in Baltimore, pretty much followed Gary Kubiak wherever he has gone. And Tyrod Taylor knows a thing or two about Gary Kubiak, the style of offense that he runs from his days in Baltimore as the backup to Joe Flacco. So I like that. I do like that. And that might be surprising for a lot of people to hear. They probably thought that I'd be pissed that he was going to stay. I posted when Rick Dennison was hired that I thought there was a 9 out of 10 chance, a 90% chance that Tyrod would stay due to the fact that they had hired Rick Dennison. I thought that set that in stone for me. There were a lot of reports, though, saying that Tyrod might not stay. It was a sticky situation. You're asking a guy that you invested in long-term to backtrack. You're asking him to go back to the contract that was a short-term deal. From what I'm hearing, it is a shorter-term deal. The money is a lot less, at least for the second and third year, possibly the fourth year. So as soon as I know what the exact details are of that contract, I'll let you guys know and talk about it on the Thomas Take Sports podcast. But until then, my Thomas Take is that I'm actually excited that the Bills will have some continuity at the quarterback position heading into what will be Tyrod's third year as a Buffalo Bills starting quarterback. Hopefully, Rick Dennison can coach this guy up, get him to fit the system as best as possible, and highlight his best attributes in this system. And that way, the Buffalo Bills will be successful in 2017. Take care. I'm Ryan Thomas. Thank you for listening to Buffalo Bills. Tyrod is here to stay.